Hello and welcome back to Fallout 76. Today we're going to talk about nuke placement, specifically for the nuke boss events. Right now in the game there are 3 events that are triggered by a nuke, 3 boss events. As I'm recording this, we have a 4th one on the way. It's about a month and a half out, and I will cover each location and things to consider when placing your nuke. Now I am in the launch area of a silo. If you need help getting to this point, I did a video on how to get through a silo easily, and I'll link that video in the description. First event I want to talk about is Seismic Activity, and that is the one where you fight the Ultrasite Titan, and that happens at Nuke World on tour. And to do that, you drop a nuke on Abandoned Mineshaft number 2, which you can see is quite a ways away from Nuke World on tour. So here we are in the targeting computer. There we go, Abandoned Mineshaft number 2. It's right here. There is Nuke World on tour. Now, one thing the game doesn't tell you is that you don't have to center the nuke on the location to trigger the event. All that needs to happen, so if I put it right here, all that needs to happen is for the circle for the location to be inside the circle. So basically what you want to think about when you're doing that is, what else am I covering up that might be something that would affect other players in a negative way? For example, if you do it like this, yes, we've covered Abandoned Mineshaft number 2, but we've also covered Nuke World. So this presents some problems for other players. Number 1, the nuke fight will be entirely in a nuke area, which, that could cause problems for people. Maybe they're not set up to fight in a nuke zone. Maybe they're brand new and they just don't have the gear for it yet. Another issue is that Nuke World on Tour is a hub, a player hub. You can sell stuff, you can craft, you can turn in legendary script, you can store ammo, you can do all kinds of things here. And if you put a nuke here, you're basically going to render this location pretty much unusable, and anybody that frequents this probably is just going to be forced to hop servers, which you really don't want to do that. You don't want to have that effect on other players that forces them to leave a server. Now, since this location is kind of in the bottom part over here of the ash heap, not a lot. I mean, there are some quests that may take you to the various locations, so you're always going to hit something. I mean, that's the thing. You're always going to include some other location inside the nuke zone. You can't control the size of the circle. So maybe something like this, I'm not necessarily the best at placing nukes, but something like this is going to have a minimal impact on other people, and it is still going to trigger the event. You can see there in the upper right part of the circle, that is Abandoned Mineshaft 2, and we are far away from Nuke World. We're kind of far away from a lot of common locations that people are going to go to. So if you put it there, you're going to trigger the event and probably not cause a lot of issues for other players. And then we have a colossal problem. That is the event in Monongah Mine that you fight Earl Williams and a whole bunch of his Wendigo minions. Now, what you want to be mindful of this is a couple of things. So if you drop the nuke right in the middle like that, what is going to happen is anybody, when they run out of the mine at the end, or if they die and get spawned outside of the mine at the end, they're going to be in a nuke zone, and they're not going to be very close to one of the edges of the nuke zone. So if they don't have power armor or a stealth suit, like a Chinese stealth suit or a hazmat suit, they're going to have some problems. They're probably not going to survive very long. So the first thing I think about when dropping a nuke on this particular area is you want to place the nuke in a position where when you exit the mine, you're either out of the nuke zone or you'll be out of the nuke zone very quickly, and the rads don't have time to eat up your health. So for example, something like this, it's not necessarily the best position, but something like this, because this is what'll happen is you'll actually run out of the mine and you'll actually be at the bottom of the nuke zone, and you can just run right out and it won't affect you. For players that play low health, maybe you're wearing unyielding armor, and if you're in the 20% health range, that's 15 intelligence that's being added, and if you have to take that off and put on either a hazmat suit or power armor, you're going to lose that buff. I mean, that's the whole reason you're playing unyielding armor. And so at the end of the event, when it gives you the event rewards, that's like a 30% hit you're going to take in terms of XP. So there's good reason to actually place this so that people can exit the nuke zone or exit the mine and not have to switch out of their preferred gear setup. Another thing to consider is the metal zone or the metal dome. That's what I would consider, because Test Your Metal, that's a really good event. And if you were to place the nuke zone something like this, you're going to completely cover the metal dome, and when that event pops up, people are most likely going to just ignore it. And if that's an event that you actually like to do, you may end up doing it just by yourself, because people don't want to have to change out of their gear just to do that event. Or they may want to. I mean, it could make it more challenging, and sometimes fighting a nuke zone can be fun. I'm not saying to never do something like this, but I am saying it is something to think about. And we also have the Rose Room here. Now, this used to be just a place that had a few cultists, but now it is a major quest location. So you probably want to avoid covering that as well, just because even if someone can get in there, they're not going to be able to fast travel to it if it is in the nuke zone. So maybe something like this. Now you're still going to cover something. No matter where you put the nuke, you are going to cover something. Now this one, maybe you want to get a little closer to the edge than I have it, but that's kind of the general idea. Then someone just have to run out of the mine, hang a left, and they're going to be out of the nuke zone very quickly. And then there's Scorched Earth, which is probably where most people drop their very first nuke. And usually the very first nuke looks something like this. I call that baby's first nuke, and that's how I did it. My very first nuke, that's exactly what it looked like. The issue with this one is that, yeah, it covers all of the areas where you would probably want to stage a fight, and maybe you want that. Maybe you want to do it in a rad zone. I could see, I mean, it can be a fun fight, but if there are players, maybe they're not set up for it. If you don't have power armor or a Chinese stealth armor and you have to fight in a hazmat suit, survivability becomes a lot of an issue because you are resistant to the rads, but you're not resistant to anything else. And so maybe some players may skip this event because they'll just die over and over again, and that's not really that fun if you go to an event and you're constantly dying. And also, just another note, there are 2 Fisher sites. Make sure you don't nuke this one. The one that just says Fisher site, that's not gonna help you. This is what you want, Fisher site prime. So typically you would leave either drop site V9, that is probably the most common one, leave that out of the nuke zone, or forward station Delta. That's another one you might want to fight from. I find this particular location, because there's a lot of trenches around there, to be a bit on the awkward side, but that is an option. And sometimes I like to, well, most of the time I like to include the overgrown Sundew Grove in there, just because after the event is over, maybe 15, 20 minutes, there's a chance you could find a Wendigo Colossus in there if that is in the nuke zone. So maybe a nuke launch like this. We've got Fisher Site Prime completely covered. We've included the Sundew Grove, and there's lots of area around drop site V9 for players to fight without having to worry about being in a rad zone. Because if everyone's outside of the zone like that, Scorched Beast Queen will come to you, and the fight will take place entirely outside of the nuke zone. Now, if you like doing it from that little Brotherhood station there, you could place the nuke like this. You will catch the flooded train yard, however, which, that could be exciting. You'll catch some other stuff, but this is another way that you could do it if that is the preferred place you choose to, or you'd rather stage the fight from. And if you are watching this after the next update has dropped, the new, that'll be Skyline Valley is the update. So it's gonna be down here-ish, somewhere in this area. And the way that boss fight is going to work is you just have to drop a nuke anywhere in that region, and that'll trigger the event, and it will not leave a nuke zone at all. The atmosphere will absorb the nuke. So that, you don't have to worry about placement at all. Just make sure you're in the right region. And there you have it. Just some things to consider when you are placing that nuke. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit one of the buttons, and I hope you'll join me in the next one. Thank you very much.